afternoon, Mackinac. It is great to see everybody as everyone kind of filters in and finds their seat. You know, I don't think it's going to be lost on anyone, Bill, that we're talking about the future of the automotive industry in a place where there are no autos to speak of.
Yeah, true.
So let's go ahead and start. I mean, when you're in rooms like this, I can only imagine with the state of where we are and what you're working on, that people have a lot of advice for you and they come up to you and say, well, you know what you ought to do.
Yeah, well, listen, cars is one thing people have always had opinions on. I mean, you know, everywhere I go, somebody wants to tell me, you know, you should have restyled the Mustang differently, or, you know, but I love that. It means people love cars. They've always had a love affair with cars. But our world is changing, and it's changing quickly. And it was interesting listening to Fareed. One of the things that he just said was, we're not investing for the future. Well, I actually feel, in our case, that's completely wrong. That's all we're doing is investing for the future. And it's not just because our industry is changing, but because I feel like I'm working for my children and my grandchildren. And I want to leave them a Ford Motor Company that is much stronger in 20, 30 years than it is today. So, you know, it was interesting to hear him say that, and I hadn't really thought of that nationally, that was the case. I actually don't think that's true for us. In fact, I know it's not.
So when we talk about our love affair with cars, in America's love affair with it, I mean, I know that there's, you know, a new generation of people that say, gosh, ride sharing, man, I don't want a car. Or some kids, some teenagers don't even want to get their driver's license. How would you describe what our love affair is with the automobile?
Well, it's gone through lots of, you know, so in the 60s, people were writing songs about it, right? I mean, and then there were all kinds of, you know, personal memories of back seats and all those kinds of things. But but I think, you know, I actually don't think it's changed much. I think one of the things that has changed is, you know, you go back to the 50s and 60s, and people could work on their own cars because they were simple and the engines were simple. So people could change the spark plugs. You'd see them out front, you know, changing the oil. But vehicles have gotten, you know, ever more complicated. And of course, now with all the software going in, you know, they're getting even more complicated. So I think, you know, but people still love cars. And in fact, the young people you mentioned, when we check out our website, young people are the ones who are configuring vehicles on our website. The problem is affordability. Vehicles have gotten really expensive. And you know, a new vehicle is tough for, you know, 18, 19, 20, you know, kind of almost up to, you know, in the 30s to afford. And we're trying to fix that. You know, we just came out with the Maverick truck, which was, you know, priced, you know, very, very low, and it's been a huge success. But we need to do more of that. And I think that, more than anything, is preventing young people from really engaging the car industry.
Well, I think that really takes us into the conversation of the changeover and moving into EVs. First off, give me just the global view from your perspective of the disruption in the industry in the timeline of 100 years.
Well, it's, you know, it's like everything else in our world. It's all happening faster and faster and faster. And so
faster than you thought?
Yeah, because what's happening is the world is actually adopting EVs faster than we are. So if you look at China, China has just blown by everybody in terms of EV, not just sales, but in terms of technology, affordability, the supply base, all of that. Then you look at Europe. Europe has adopted EVs much faster than we have. And so, yeah, that's all happened really, really fast, in kind of a blink of an eye in terms of the way the auto industry operates. So it's happening quickly. Here, it's happening quickly, but not as quickly as it is in the rest of the world.
I feel like that back in 2011, you were kind of raising the flag saying, the shift is coming, change is coming, and people were like, no, hang on, you just wait a little bit, maybe that's not going to happen. And now that we're catching at this place, how do you think then we have come behind from all of that? What is it about our philosophy then in the US that is different than those different parts of the world?
Well, first of all, you know, gasoline is cheaper here than in the rest of the world. So that's one reality. You know, and we have lots of oil in this country. Whether we choose to explore it or not is another question. And I think the other thing, though, is in many ways we have moved really quickly. I mean, you know, you think about ride hailing and ride sharing, that's all happened very quickly. Certainly electrification is happening and is by historical standards very quickly. I do think, though, you know, I never thought I would see the day where our products have gotten politicized. But there is this notion now that if you are red, you're for internal combustion. If you're blue, you're for EVs. In our wildest dreams, we never thought we would see our products somehow be politicized. But like everything else in this country now, things, even our products are getting politicized. And so that will change the rate of adoption also.
Is that disappointing to you? I mean,
well, I don't know. It was surprising. I don't know if it's disappointing, but it was surprising because, one thing Americans could always agree on was that they loved their vehicles, right? Now, they got to the point where if they had big traffic jams, they loved their vehicle and hated everybody else's. But they still loved their vehicles. And I think, now, though, there is this sort of undercurrent. And we live at a time, which I never thought I would see, where people are angry about everything. They just are. And you don't have to look very far to get offended by something or somebody. And so, and I think that as a result, I see it in our own interactions with whether it's policymakers or customers or people who want to comment on our sites. The level of politeness and discourse has really changed. And I don't think it's a good thing. And as Fareed just said, look, you strip away everything. This is still the greatest country on earth, and it just is. And, some of these things that people are so angry about are really first world problems. And yet that doesn't change it. They are.
let's talk about moving into EVs. And there are people that are driving them now who love them very much.
Mm-hmm.
But to move to that point where we are going to be fully electric and taking a look at the price, infrastructure, and people are not quite sure.
Yeah, and they're not. And the great thing about us is we've sort of positioned our company that we can go whichever way it breaks. So we have an amazing collection of internal combustion products that I'm very proud of, whether it's Bronco or Bronco Sport or F-150 or Explorer. I mean, and you can go down the list, Mustang. Those are great internal combustion vehicles. They're going to be around a long time. If adoption happens more quickly, we're going fast down that road too. So, I believe that optionality for us is the way to go because one size doesn't fit all. Some people, really do want EVs. Other people are saying, over my dead body, I'll never drive one of those things. That's fine. I mean, nobody's forcing anybody into anything. And yet we are placing our bets that the EV future will come. And so, but it's, as I say, it won't be a smooth, easy one. But it was interesting when we introduced the F-150 Lightning. That really opened my eyes because the reaction to that vehicle, people were blown away because they realized this wasn't just an F-150 that we threw a battery in. In many ways, this was a much more competent vehicle. You had all that extra room in front. You could use the vehicle to power your work site. It was a generator. In fact, you could use it to power your home if you lost power at home, things that your internal combustion vehicle couldn't do. And when people saw what the added efficacy of that was, it really opened a lot of people's eyes. Well, wait, maybe this electric thing might work.
But you also did grab brands, though, that had fierce loyalty. And you were able to, and then when you put a Mustang out there, you weren't too pleased about that at first, right?
No, I was the last one to say yes to that inside Ford because to me, a Mustang had to be a V8 with a stick, and the idea
and a top down.
Yeah, and the top down, and the idea of actually having an EV that made no noise at all. Are you kidding? But until I drove it, and then I drove it, I thought, oh my God, this is actually amazing.
They kept coming back to you, though.
They
right?
did, but they didn't have a drivable prototype, so I was unmoved. But but when they finally got one, I thought, wow, this thing's a blast. It snaps your head back. Within
the speed limit,
I shouldn't
I'm
be
sure
talking
Bill
about
Ford
this,
never
but
speeds, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, it drives my family crazy because I always say, well, I've never gotten a speeding ticket. And then the question is, well, how many times have you been pulled over? Well, the good news is most of the police are car nuts. So.
So wait a minute. So this is you talking your way out of a ticket?
I don't have to say anything. They like the cars I'm in.
Please tell me they come up and they go, license registered. Mr. Ford, please go on your way.
No, they ask me a million questions about the vehicle. And like everybody else, why didn't you do this? Why did you do this? So it's fun.
So now that we've kind of really established where everything is headed and that it's happening a lot faster, and it takes a lot of different kind of coordination within a company to be able to change and to pivot. Talk about some of those changes even within the last 2 years at Ford.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're basically becoming a software company. Well, we'll always be a hardware company, but we're rapidly becoming a software company as well, and that's a big change. It's a big change in a lot of ways, not just acquiring software talent, but the way you manage software talent is very different than the way you manage hardware talent. And so, we're in a very, we're learning fast and we're moving fast. So, and we've divided the company into 3 different divisions. We have our EV company, we have our internal combustion company, and we have Ford Pro, which is our commercial company, which is actually a combination of both, but it serves our commercial customers. And yeah, I mean, we're managing the company very differently than we did a few years ago. And, we're probably making some mistakes. I'm sure we are. And we'll probably look back and have to fine-tune some of it. But so far, it's going really, really well. And I think for us, sort of the secret weapon is the Pro business. So we do business vehicles really well. In fact, we're #1 in the world. But they have different requirements than a retail buyer does. So, I mean, they want to have their vehicle have 24-hour uptime if they can. They can't wait to get service for, a 10-day service appointment. They have to have it serviced right now. They need loaner vehicles. They need all those kinds of things to keep their business moving. And so they need different kinds of software, and so that they can control their fleet. They can know their exact fleet fuel economy, all these kinds of things that we're now providing to them that a retail buyer more or less doesn't really care about. So, and it's going to be a huge profit driver for our company. And the customer loyalty to that is really, really high. But that's a new way we're managing too.
So when you're talking about your hardware company, but you're also a software company, that means you're gathering a lot of different kind of talent as well. And when you're doing the expansion and looking at expanding with EVs, and specifically, let's go ahead and take a look at Michigan and finding the talent that's here and the deliberate placemaking and deliberate decision about when you grow and when you're picking a plant and where you want to be. What are some of the considerations that I think Michigan needed to take into consideration to be able to have more of Ford here?
Well, Michigan's always going to have Ford here as long as I'm alive. I love this state. I can't imagine not investing in Michigan. But and one of the
Yes.
and we've invested billions over the last few years in Michigan, and will continue to do so. And one of the great things we have here are our universities. Our universities in Michigan are fantastic. And there's a lot of talent coming out of those universities. But the problem was, in the past, a lot of those graduates would move to Chicago, or we lost them. But we now can offer those kinds of jobs, software and hardware, but particularly working on future problems that young people find really compelling. So we're doing a lot of hiring in Michigan, and as I say, our pipeline here is really good. The problem was in the past we'd lose them, and then it's hard to get them back. I remember Rick Snyder had an initiative to go around to different cities around the country trying to get Michigan alumni to get interested in reinvesting in Michigan, and actually in some cases getting them to move home. But that's a lot tougher proposition than not losing them in the first place. And we don't have to lose them. So, Michigan is, we'll always have issues. I mean, that's for sure. And every state always will. And, when we made our battery plant decision, we went first to Kentucky and Tennessee because Michigan wasn't ready. But I give the governor and her team a ton of credit because they quickly said, okay, what's it going to take for us?
I was just going to say, that must have been a tough conversation.
Well, not really. Not really, because it wasn't even close. And she was intensely interested in how do we fix this? And how is Michigan in the running for the next go-round and the go-round after that? How do we position Michigan for the future?
So what were some of the things that we did not have at that time?
One of the things we didn't have was, so what Tennessee and Kentucky did have, which was really interesting. I'll just talk about Tennessee, but Kentucky was the same way. Tennessee had a bunch of parcels already prepared for any size business that would walk in there. So for instance, if you were a 10-person business and you wanted to relocate, they could show you, a number of sites ready to go. If you were 100, different sites, and all the way up. And then they had 2 mega sites, of which we ended up taking 1, that they were holding for the right company. And they turned down a number of people, but those mega sites were not just land acquisitions. They had the on-off ramps ready to go from the freeways. They had the railheads ready to go. I mean, it was really as close to turnkey as you could get. Well, we hadn't had that kind of forethought in Michigan to start banking those kind of opportunities. And so, so that's one of the things I said to the governor is, you don't have any place for us to go. I mean, even if we wanted to come here, there was no place to go that had, and the permitting process. Kentucky and Tennessee had really streamlined the permitting process. Well, she moved heaven and earth to do that for us as well. So I give Quentin Messer and Governor Whitmer a ton of credit for reacting very quickly when they realized that Michigan needed to get its act together, and they did.
In talking about that placement in Marshall, especially now that you're going through this process, and Michigan Central, I know that Josh is going to be coming up right after us just to speak about that so people can get a better idea of the campus. But the importance of being in an area and having the residents of the area understand what is actually going to be happening there, how important is that to you, and what steps do you need to take as a company to make sure that people are on board?
Well, look, I mean, one of our core values as a company is we take care of the communities in which we operate, and we've always done that. And that's true of wherever we have plants. It's true of Dearborn, Michigan. It'll be certainly true in Detroit when we're fully operational there. We don't just build something or occupy a building and then call it a day. We engage in the community and really try and make people's lives better. I mean, one of the things I've always believed is a company shouldn't exist unless it's making people's lives better. And you have to always ask yourself that question, are we doing that? And if not, we need to change something. So I think that, wherever we build, whether it's in Tennessee or Kentucky or Marshall, Michigan, the residents hopefully will understand that we are there to not just build batteries or vehicles, but to build communities and build opportunity for people. And we're there for the long run, and we're going to be there through our philanthropic arm. We'll be there through our community engagement. And one of the things we did, you mentioned Michigan Central. We spent a lot of time, and Josh, I'm sure we'll talk about this, and Mary Culler, who's here today, really spearheaded this, was spending a lot of time both in Southwest Detroit and in Corktown, talking to residents and saying, what do you want us to do, and what don't you want us to do, and how will this not be a corporate takeover of your neighborhood, but how can we make your life better by us being here? And we did a lot of listening, and we have to do that in Marshall. We have to do a lot of listening and then addressing the concerns they have, and maybe we haven't done a good enough job of that. So, it's interesting because, Ford's been around 120 years, and I think the communities that we've operated in for the last X number of years understand that. But the new communities, we haven't built a lot of new stuff in years. All of a sudden, we're building a lot of new stuff, and we're building them in new places. And, I think it's unreasonable for us to expect them to think, oh yeah, Ford will be great neighbor, because they don't know us. I mean, if they know of us, they think favorably in terms of the way we deal with the community. But it's really, the onus is on us to convince them that we're going to be great for them.
Yeah, you just had the book depository open up, which is going to be an incubator for a lot of small businesses there. To see this coming so close now in the entire campus, and an idea that, people were a little like, maybe this is not the greatest idea, Bill.
Yeah, no, I got a lot of that. But you know what? We're in a war for talent in Michigan. And we're in a war for talent at Ford. And if you're going to attract the best and the brightest, you've got to give them exceptional things. And one thing people don't want to do is go work in some nondescript, suburban building where the walls are gray and everything looks the same, and and it's just dreary.
Yes.
And so the opportunity to work at the Book Depository building or the Michigan Central Station really provides that. And at the Book Depository building, the energy there is amazing. You've got, 31 companies now, I think, Josh, is something like that. And they've raised over $500 million in venture capital, and we made it open. So we didn't want this to be a Ford thing. So some of the companies are working with Ford, some of them are working with Stellantis, some are working with GM, some are working with tier one suppliers. Some aren't doing any of that. But they're working with each other, and they're learning from each other. And one of the things I think that Mayor Duggan and I haven't had the conversation yet, but I've been thinking about a lot, and Mike, we'll talk about this offline. No, is the next step is these companies have to have a place to grow too. So they're all young companies now. Many of them are not from Michigan. In fact, most of them aren't. And they love being in Detroit, and they love being in the book depository. But if they're successful, they'll outgrow it, and then they have to go somewhere. And I think that's something that we should think about as a city and as a region. How do we keep those companies here in Detroit because they love it, and we should be able to keep them here. And so, and I've been thinking about that a lot because right now it's great. They're all young, they're all fired up, but some won't make it, and they'll be replaced by new startups. But some will make it, but we want to keep them here.
Yeah, we've talked an awful lot up here on Mackinac this week about growing population here in the state of Michigan and what that's going to take. And it's not going to be just one thing or five things. And it's not going to be anything that we're going to be able to do in 2 years. It's got to be concerted and more of a long-term effort, not something that ends with terms. But what would your thoughts be on that?
Well, look, one of the things, the great attractions, we have so many. First of all, we've got all the fresh water in Michigan where you look at any place west of the Mississippi and they're dying for water. And, by the way, we have to make sure we're doing a great job protecting our Great Lakes because I don't want...
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a stretch. They've already drained the Colorado River to say, well, it'd be great. The Great Lakes have a lot of water. We can just tap into that. I mean, hell no. Mm-hmm. But that's a great attraction long term, our fresh water. Our workforce here is terrific, and we have, as I just said a minute ago, great universities. We kind of have all the ingredients to be. We don't have natural disasters really. I mean, yeah, we have a couple. We have some tornadoes every now and then, but relative to the rest of the country, we don't. We've got it all here. We really do, and our only opposition is ourselves. And we just got to get our act together and build a long-term future here. And I think we're doing that. I mean. When I look at what's happened to Detroit in the last 10 years and the reputation of the city, I mean, you all talk about this all the time. All of us live this. I mean, 10 years ago, if you tried to hire somebody in the East Coast or West Coast and you said, please come to Detroit, I mean, forget it. And we'd bring in prospective employees and we'd show them, talk about how great the suburbs were, how great the school systems were, how great northern Michigan was. And if you took them to Detroit, you'd take them to a ball game and then get out of there. So different now. It was really interesting. There's a coffee shop that's attached to a barber shop in Corktown, and I was talking to the barber, and I said to him, he had 10 chairs, and I said, can you fill all these chairs? He said, oh, yeah. He said, in fact, I've got resumes, that I don't know what to do with. I said, what do you mean? He said, oh, anybody from San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, Denver. He said they can't make a living on a barber's wage, and they hear the buzz around Detroit now is, really great, and they can make a living, and so I could have whoever I want. I mean, but, thanks to our mayor who's just done an amazing job. Yeah. So we have everything here to be successful. We do, and I'm very bullish on our future. And it's really important. And the one thing I forgot to mention is we know how to make things in Michigan. And yeah, the world software is becoming important, but you still have to make things that software goes in, and you still have to integrate that software into what you make. And I believe we can. And we saw during COVID. We switched over from making cars to PPE equipment. Guess what? If we were making all our vehicles in, some other country, we couldn't do that. We were the arsenal of democracy during World War II. We switched over. Yeah, I mean, and also the multiplier effect on a manufacturing job is real. And that's why so many countries and frankly so many states, are really want Ford and I'm sure GM and Stellantis and everybody else to go there, because it's not just the direct jobs you create, it's all the indirect jobs as well.
How does family legacy weigh on you? Your daughter is on the board and walking through this pivotal time in the industry and at the company.
Well, first of all, I love having my daughter on the board, even though she tells me everything I'm doing is wrong. But
that's what kids are for.
Yeah, exactly. She did that from the day she was born, so at least she's consistent. No, it's been really fun. I love it, and as I said at the beginning, I really feel like I'm working for her and her kids, and my and not just her, but but all my kids and all the grandkids maybe yet to come. I don't know, maybe, but and so it does make me take a longer view of things, and maybe not get quite so worried about some of the short-term hiccups, and just to say, are we generally on the right path? Are we making the right investments? And are we understanding what this next generation wants? I think too often our industry has been an echo chamber, and we've been a very insular industry, and in some ways in an insular state for too long. That's all changing now. It's changing because the need for software, it's changing because technology is changing rapidly, and we have to be abreast of it all. And I think that's really good because, as I say, the one negative I think that Michigan had and our industry had is, for many, many years, we were kind of a one-horse town. And everybody was somehow attached to the auto industry. So everybody would tell everybody how great everything was. Well, guess what? You drive out to California, good luck finding an American car, right? But you come back to Detroit, and all you saw were American cars on the road, and you could convince yourself that everything was fine. So I've always tried to take a longer view of where the world is headed and where Ford should be placing its bets, because I think that is part of the family legacy. Is I really want this company to not just survive but thrive for another 100 years.
All right, so we only have about 2 minutes left, and I'm going to do something that I never do. I always keep it serious, but I'm going to ask you 5 quick, totally frivolous questions that I want the answers to.
Be careful, you might not like the answers.
No, I'm going to love every answer. All right.
Okay.
Favorite car for a road trip? Make, model, year.
Mustang V8 stick shift convertible down on the Pacific Coast Highway in California.
Color.
Color, it doesn't matter as long as the sound's up, cranked up.
Soundtrack?
Well, I'm a one-hit wonder guy, so nobody likes my songs.
Okay.
So, I'm pretty much, I'll date myself, I'm pretty much a 70s, kind of.
Serious 70s on 7?
Got it.
All right, that'll be good. Things that keep you up at night?
Oh, boy. Well, other than 4 children, which I think would keep any parent up at night. No, it's just, particularly during the dark days of the financial crisis when, GM and Chrysler went bankrupt and we were just hanging on, I would stare at the ceiling every night saying, is this all going to go down on my watch? Am I going to be the one after 100 years that ruined the family company? And I worry about that every night. I do. I mean, I like where we are. We're very profitable. Things are going well, but there's no shortage of things to worry about, and I suppose there never will be.
Yeah. All right, best place in Michigan?
Oh, any place, any place in a trout stream. And thankfully, we've got lots of good ones.
Oh, nice. All right, what brings you joy right now?
Well, other than the obvious answers of my kids and my grandkids, I love to play hockey. I'm 66, and I still...
Wait, do they check you into the boards because you're Bill Ford, or do they stay away from you because you're Bill Ford?
Depends how pissed off they are that day. Sometimes I get slashed just for fun. Other times they don't. But no, I really love it. And actually, one of the things I really love is I play in the Ford Hockey League, and it allows me to get to know people that I wouldn't know otherwise in my job. And of course, the trash talking is pretty severe, and a lot of it's directed at me. So. Yeah.
All right, well, fill in the blank.
Yeah, so in fact, one of the guys said the other night, he said, if I slash you, are you going to choke on the silver spoon?
You're like, check your paycheck next week.
Exactly.
All right, last thing for you. In 5 years, I hope, fill in the blank.
Well, I hope I'm still doing this because I love it. And I love what I do. I love the company. And I love the people in the company. To me, it's not the vehicles or the plants or any of the machinery. It's the people. And it will always be the people. And any company is only as good as its people. So if we can attract the best and the brightest, and then we can keep them happy and motivated, then we'll have a great company. And I love that. And I love spending time with our employees. And that's the part that I enjoy most. So, yeah, in 5 years, I hope I'm still doing that.
All right, we can't wait to see what's next. Ladies and gentlemen, Bill Ford Jr.
Thank you, Christy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is a lot of fun.